There's quite a lot of emphasis in the whole world of, I guess, non-duality, for lack of a better name, on there not being a self, not being a findable self. And I, it's not something I am necessarily emphasizing, although I do obviously explore it. But I thought just for fun, we could look at that this morning. That question of can we find can we find the individual, the autonomously existing creatures we imagine ourselves to be? And there's a lot of different kind of I guess angles into that exploration. So I thought we'd play with a few of them with you. Um, I think one way to start is to ask a simple yet profound question, which is we have this sense of being the perceiver. There's obviously something being perceived, and then we have most of the time this sense of, or a lot of the time, this sense of, well, I'm the perceiver, I'm seeing this moment. I'm experiencing this moment, perceiving this moment. So that's the question to explore right now. I invite you to explore, which is what is seeing this moment right now? As with all the questions I'm going to pose in the next little bit of time, there the questions are the invitation is to explore them, to explore the questions in your experience. Go to your experience to find the answer, if there is an answer to the question. So, what's looking through your eyes right now? I mean, there's this experience of seeing, right? What's looking through your eyes right now? Feel that. I mean, conventionally would say I'm looking through my eyes, right? But what is looking through your eyes? Feel that. What do you find there? Do you find an individual? Do you find anything looking through your eyes? What is that? Something's there, right? There's an experience. There's a felt sense. When I say feel what's looking through your eyes, you always feel something. Something's present. What is that? Is it an individual or is it just the presence of life itself? You feel that? Wide open presence of life itself. And that's just a word, of course. I mean, or a series of words, but this is the funny thing. When you go to look for anything, in a very real sense, you always find the same thing. You find the sense of presence, the sense of something showing up, but you can't determine what that is, can you? The felt sense of experience. This is the interesting thing about looking for the self, what the self is, even if we have assume that there is one that can be identified, like this is me, this is John Aston. Um, any aspect of the character that I might think of as myself, or the character you might think of as yourself, has these different aspects to it, thoughts, a body, a mind, a personality, all these characteristics. But any of those characteristics that you might think of as you, that make you uniquely you, how would you know those characteristics? You know them as experience, right? So when we go to look for the individual, we always find experience. When we go to look for anything, we always find experience. When you go to look for some object, you find experience. When you go to look for some mental emotional state, you find experience. When you go to look for the supposed subject of all of this, you find more experience, right? So as you feel the experience that you might think of as yourself, notice, like we are always talking about in these meetings, the dynamism of this experiencing, isn't it? Is there a fixed identity of you as experience, or is it just constantly like falling away, constantly slipping away, constantly transforming the experience? As you know, those of you who've listened to me before and been with me in different ways, that I'm highlighting this ever-changing, ever morphing slipperiness of experience, because seeing that cuts through the the fantasy of there being things, fixed things, identifiable things, right? Because you can't identify what's here because what's here is on the move, it would seem. It's moving away in its transformative dynamism, right? So you can't ever grasp hold of it. And it's exactly the same with finding the identity of an individual is the experience of that is what? Liquefying, dissolving. Where can an individual be found in light of that transiency, of that slipperiness of experience? Where's the identity? You feel that? Somewhere in one of the Buddhist scriptures, it says all dharmas are empty of self-nature. It's kind of the core teaching of emptiness. Empty of self-nature means that you can't find the identity of the phenomena that's you imagine exists because of this impermanence, this slipperiness, this ever dissolvingness. And this is true of phenomena that we think of as outside of us and the phenomena that we might think of as us, the self. It's the same unfindable, identityless nature. So it's strange because there's this sense of being an embodied creature, right? Like we all have that sense. And here I am, and I'm not you. That sense of differentiation is there. There's no denying it. Like I'm seeing a few people that I know on the screen. There's Katie and Gary and Bob um and like right, that sense of differentiation is there, like it's showing up. It appears, and that's that sense of we could say that primal sense of self and other. That differentiation is there in one sense. A sense of um, difference is there. But when I go to look for what those supposedly differentiated things are, what are they made of? I always come up empty-handed. I can't get to the bottom of what makes Katie Katie or Gary Gary or John John that supposedly I can identify and recognize as distinct from me. But it's paradoxical. I can't find the source of that. I can't find the source of anything. It's without a basis. In a sense, nothing has a basis. That's the identitylessness of it. Not that I could pin down at least, right? Because I can't get to the bottom of what I am. The one understanding of of self-transcendence is a discovery that um, what I am is whatever I might be is utterly beyond comprehension and beyond resolvability. So I just invite you to feel that the unresolvable nature of you, of the apparent individual. You're already dissolved as that unresolvable infinity, as is everything, which doesn't keep you from popping up and showing up as a creature, right? Because here you are, you're still here, sort of. That's a funny thing. That sense, like here's I've talked about this before. Here's the field of experience, what's occurring, seemingly, what's happening, the events unfolding right now. And that sense of personhood is one of well, it's all happening to me. Like all this experience, thoughts, feelings, sensations, circumstances, like they're happening and they're kind of coming towards, like I'm on the receiving end. You know that feeling? Like I'm on the receiving end of life, whether I'm listening to music, whether there's something very difficult going on, whether whatever, I'm on the receiving end of it. It's happening to me. So it's as if you've got this, you know, uh, edgeless sort of field of experiencing. Like you don't find any edge to it, but somehow there's this sense of at the center of it is me. Like I'm at the center of it, like this circumscribed person. But again, if you feel what's at the center of experience and go to look for it, what are you going to find? You're going to find more experience, aren't you? When I go to look for the center of this moment, I find just more, the center of this experience, I just find more experience. So experience inside of experience is, in other words, there's no separation. There's no, I'm not on the receiving end of thoughts, feelings, sensations. There's no separation. There's no, from this perspective that I'm inviting you to kind of get a sense of, like there's no, the presumed subject at the center is without any findable edge or boundary to it, right? So there's no subject and there's no object. There's just this, undivided. I mean, when you feel the flow of experience, I'll ask you this question. Do you find any division anywhere in the flow of experience? Feel it. Do you ever run into a wall? Do you ever hit a boundary? Do you ever bump up against something other than experience? Or do you just find experience wherever you look, wherever you go, seemingly? And that's a funny thing. Like, and again, it's kind of a matter of perspective. From one perspective, I'm here and like I'm not with you in person right now, but I'm seeing right now, I'm looking at Gary's picture because it's just what's popped up on my screen. And so I'm here and Gary's over there. Like that's a conventional sort of view. And there's some kind of space between the two of us, right? I'm here, he's there. And if we were chatting, the conversation would be going on between these two individuals, and there's a kind of space between us again, right? So, but how do I know any of that? It's all based on experience because everything's based on experience. So I'm having this experience, but when I feel the experience that's here, I mean, I'm always feeling it, but when I notice the experience itself, rather than assume anything about it, like that there's any division, and I feel the experience, I'm not going to assume anything that there's any other people or anything. Just go right to experience. I do not find two people. I find experience. Do you find, if you look at me, do you find two people, you and me? Or do you find, and you go to your experience. Don't assume that there's two people here, two separate individuals. Just go to your experience. And what do you find? You find experience, don't you? Do you find any division, any separation, any autonomous existing individuals? Or do you just find a flow, an unending flow of experiencing? Has a different feel to it, doesn't it? That sense of no division. It's interesting because it feels like it has complete space to include the sense of division. Like it has no opposition to anything, any argument with anything. So but as a kind of way of encountering reality, the undivided sort of perspective, experiential perspective, it's got a really different feel to it, doesn't it? Because there's no other. It's well, there's no words for it, really. I mean, here's another very similar kind of doorway into discovering the undivided nature of this, the unfindability of a separate individual that somehow has been plucked out of the whole and stands apart from the whole, right? I mean, just to say this, like you have all been, I imagine, on your particular unique journeys to find whatever you're looking for. Let's say in a spiritual context, trying to find God, trying to find the absolute reality, trying to find the great perfection, trying to find whatever it might be, right? The oneness of everything. So all of that's the search presumes separation, doesn't it? Like that I'm looking for something that I don't have. Like, but the power of seeing that there's no separation is just that. It's like it's the end of the journey of anything being missing, isn't it? Because there's just the wholeness, that the longed for wholeness is what's here. It's already a done deal. The wave has never escaped the sea to become something other than the sea. And yet, the waves that we are have been on a journey, however long the journey has been, to find the ocean, right? If you're anything like me, you have. I searched far and wide to find that vastness, that oneness, that the source. I mean, if you feel the sense of being, the sense of your own existence, like I ask, if I ask any one of you, are you alive? And you would go, yes, I can feel that sense of aliveness, right? So feel that sense of aliveness right now, sense of being. And now venture out to the presumed edges of you, the being of you, okay, like spatially. Go ahead and do that. Feel the sense of being. Now go to the outer edges of being, like because if you're localized here and then there's a world outside of you, then presumably you'll be able to find the end of you and then you find what's on the other side of you, right? But as you feel being, go out to the edges of being, the edge of you. And do you find anything at the edge of you? Do you find an edge, spatially speaking? Or do you just find more being, more aliveness? if you imagine, as a lot of humans do, that the edge of us is the skin, that's the skin line, the skin suit. And if you imagine that that was the edge, and you felt that edge, you'd be feeling more being, more presence, right? More aliveness at the edge of you, the presumed edge. And then if you went beyond that edge, even if you say there is an edge and you feel that edge, what do you find? You find more being. And if you go to the other side of the edge of you, to the atmosphere around you, what do you find? You find more being, more presence, the presence of life, the presence of whatever this is. So it's really like a continuum that even if you exist as an individual and you move out from that individual out into the world beyond the individual, you just find being. You just find being, the beingness of everything, the beingness of you, the beingness of the atmosphere around you, the beingness of the creatures that seem to exist outside of you. You just find being. You don't find, again, any dividing lines. It's a continuum, isn't it? Empirically. Like, I mean, if you find a dividing line, I want to hear about it. Because, of course, what would the dividing line be made of? More being, if it exists. One last little doorway I'll invite you to explore around the self and the apparent individuals we are. Um, and we think of ourselves, I think of myself as having had a life, like John's history as a creature, right? The story of John, my background. Oh, we're always telling stories about our previous, experiences and history. I was born, I had a childhood, I was raised by these wonderful parents, lucky me, and all the different experiences I had. And, it's a long story, right? The history of John. And, but where is the story of you now? It exists in memory, right? But memory is just memory. In other words, what was like like this moment right now it's gone. You'll never retrieve it, will you? History, there is no history that can ever be experienced. This is really trippy when it comes to the self. There's no history that can be experienced. The experience is always now, right? And now has no history or any future either. And so where exactly is the story of John in the only instant I actually have, which is this instant now? There's no history. There's just being. No history, no story. Where is it? I mean, I can dredge it up in memory. I can tell you the story of John, and that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's an abstraction. It's not an experience. I can't experience my history. In that sense, I have no history. And if I don't have any history, then what am I? Just this immediacy, free of self, free of the story of the self in the moment. The moment itself is free of history. You don't have to do anything to get rid of the history or get rid of the self or any of that. The moment itself is free of self by its very nature, free of history, the story of the self, the story of the self of everything. And we get to have both, we still get to be individuals and play in that world too. It's just not the whole story.